Hey, what is up, everybody? My name's Tony. Welcome to the first official live stream of Drinks and Opinions. Just coming out tonight to hang out, see how everybody's doing, maybe go over some news articles, and I definitely want to discuss tonight a TV show that I grew up with. I figure it'd be a good time tonight to just get some people in here, hang out, have some chat, hopefully. And sorry about that, had the mic over there. But yeah, let's get into this. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask down there. I'll answer anything you want. All right. Hey, what's up, Lemon? How you doing? Alrighty, let's do a little screen share here. All right. Something I actually want to talk about tonight. I actually heard this on another channel, and the reason I want to bring this up is because I actually found it interesting. I've never heard of it. As somebody that's never worked in Hollywood, anything like that. It's actually brought up on another show. 1 second. Let's swap right here. It's called the Hays Code. Never heard of it until tonight. Figure it was something I want to look up, discuss. I found some interesting parts of it from back when it was started, I think up until the 40s, 50s, when it was still carried on with. And I think my understanding from the 60s on, it kind of axed it for the most part. Everybody ignored it. Well, yes, I am dressed up, lemon pie. It's my first show. I got to be spiffy, Nice pair of glasses, nice tie, button up t shirt. Got to be classy for your first show and all. And just so y'all know, I do have my drinks, and this is Drinks and Opinions. So if y'all have a drink, enjoy it. If you have water, enjoy that. Whatever floats your boat. But anyways, let's get back to this because I've really kind of wanted to get into this one. So I've actually found it quite interesting. The origin of the Hays Code. I'll go on and highlight everything for everybody. It'll be a little easier to follow along. The Hays Code is not simple as a few rules that filmmakers had to follow. Though it was definitely that too. Sorry, I'm nervous. This will be my first live. So bear with me. I'll get better. But before digging into it, to the origins and historical context, let's provide some definition. All right, here it is. What is the Hays Code? The Hays Code is a set of rules and guidelines that Hollywood films were made to follow between the early 1930s and late 1960s. I'm wishing I had Rancor Steve or Gary Ambrosia here because they both would probably know this really well. But it was officially named the Motion Picture Production Code. There were a set of moral guidelines and rules that were meant to make Hollywood pictures presentable, like me, and safe for the public at large, which means not covering or featuring certain controversial topics, themes, or actions. All right. Let's see. Hays Code examples include keeping Catholic and family values. I would assume family values probably would lump in Christian values with that. No sexually explicit content. Good guys always win, bad guys always lose. Nothing that promotes bad values or perversion. We can all tell this code is not followed anymore by any stretch of the imagination. Unless you go to the one channel, was it the Hallmark channel? They seem to do that over there. The Hays Code is alive and well, apparently, if anybody's watched it. And no swearing and saying offensive things. Again, just a few of the codes that they actually had that I'm reading from, but I got another article too I'll read from. All right. The Hays Code The Hays Code got its popular nickname from Bill H. Hayes, a Presbyterian elder who was made president of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, MPPDA, who set up a motion picture production code and its guidelines, or who set up the motion picture production codes and guidelines. My apologies. Hayes was brought up to Hollywood because their image was not pretty in the 1920s. Serious scandals in Hollywood and concerns from people across the nation was making the pre-Hayes Code movies look bad. States were setting up their own censorship guidelines, and Hollywood was very worried about the U.S. government getting involved. Again, won't go there. I have my own opinions on that, but we'll leave that alone and kind of go with the article as to not ruin it. All right. That's basically, I'm not going to show the video because we know how YouTube can be. I think we all kind of get the general idea with this. All right. So while Pre-Code Hollywood was making pre-Hayes Code movies that covered sex and violence, they were also thinking it was best to self-censor so that they could hopefully prevent anyone else from intervening. Can't say I blame them. Who would want an outside source intervening on something you were doing? But again, it's Hollywood, so we know how that can go. They just kind of do their own thing, especially now. In this way, they could have a nationwide rule book that would cover all their bases and, hopefully, offend no one, especially the Hayes office. Yeah, I have a feeling back then when that was put into place, if they violated that, it probably wouldn't have went well for Hollywood. And if I'm not mistaken from what I saw, Hollywood back then at that time when this was put in really was struggling with their movies and stuff like that, because that was before TV and everything. So any kind of pictures, like when they would have them on the big screen, were, from my understanding, having a lot of issues back then. By the way, in case you were wondering where the First Amendment was during all of this, it had been decided in a 1915 court case that free speech did not cover motion pictures because they were seen solely as a business and not as an art form. That's interesting back then that they considered a business but not an art form. I guess even now, by today's standards, the way it is, I guess it still is technically a business again and not even an art form. For me, I think it's kind of went away from being art to just throwing whatever up and praying everybody comes to the theater, or somebody at this point, because we all know a lot of movies and TV shows are doing horrible right now. Between ratings, money, viewership, things like that, they're just not doing well. All right. The Hayes Code in action. The MPPDA had set up its rules of don'ts and be carefuls in 1927, a set of guidelines that, among other things, said movies could not include printed profanity, all right, miscongenation. I'm probably saying that totally wrong, so please bear with me. There's some words I just can't pronounce no matter how hard I try. That's that's relations between people of different races. So basically, we call it no interracial relationships. That's how we would say it now. Ridicule of the clergy. Basically, couldn't make fun of the church, pastors, stuff like that. And willful offense to any nation, race, or creed. These don'ts were then supplemented by the be carefuls that included the use of firearms. The use of firearms. That brings back a story from a year or two ago. Was it 16, 18 months ago? A firearms on a set that went horribly wrong. Again, that's a topic for another discussion. Sympathy for criminals. Men and women in bed together. Yeah, because that was a big thing. And if you watch a lot of movies or even some TV shows, even from like the 50s and even some in the 60s, they slept in separate beds. Like Leave It to Beaver, for example. You know, the mom and dad slept in two separate beds. They were split single beds. You've seen that in quite a few shows back then, and even some movies where men and women didn't sleep together. Now we know why. Well, for those of us that didn't know, like myself. And also the use of drugs and excessive or lustful kissing. So basically, like a peck on the cheek would be fine, like that. Peck on the lips would be fine. It was just not supposed to be like long, drawn out, passionate, basically. And these rules were the basis for what would officially be the Hays Code a few years later. All right, well, we'll see you when you come back, Lemon. Let us know. All right. There's some text of the production code. I don't even know if I can zip this in, but let's see for a minute. Let's see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. There we go. I got it right on the first shot. Amazing. I thought I would have totally screwed that up. Don't worry, it's been past 30 seconds. I can say screwed up. All right. General. Okay, this was, well, when it was printed was August 11th, 1934. General principles. No pictures shall be produced which will lower the moral standards of those who see it. Hence, the sympathy of the audience should never be thrown to the side of crime, wrongdoing, evil, or sin. Yeah, I think that's changed here in the past, really heavily in the past 20 years, 30 years, past few decades. We'll go with that. Gone way away from that in many movies and TV. Yeah, not that I have a problem with it, but to each their own. But that's how it was back then. It was just a different society in many ways. You know, some things are the same, but a lot of things compared to now are way different. Correct standards of life, subject only to the requirements of drama and entertainment, shall be presented. Law, natural or human, shall not be ridiculed, nor shall sympathy be created for its violation. Now, these are just this. What that's showing there is just kind of a few of what they were talking about back then, like the Hays Code when this was printed. So we'll read a few more just to kind of see what else is in here. Now, it has particular applications, but it doesn't go down, so I can't see those and read them. But we'll start at seduction or rape. The R word, sorry. Relax, YouTube. It's an actual article from 1934 I'm reading. A, they shall never be more than suggested, and only when essential for the plot, and even then never shown by explicit method. Sorry, I got to wet my whistle here a little bit with a little coffee. So basically, you could kind of hint at it, or it could be indirectly talked about. You just couldn't show it. Not like today. And B, they are never the proper subject for comedy. Again, you know, that part you definitely has changed since then. And I've seen that many movies, you know, or stuff like that, you know, has a comedic edge to it, sometimes delivered horribly, sometimes not bad. But I think, you know, we all think the R word is bad, obviously. Sex perversions or any inference to it is forbidden. Definitely another one out the window. White slavery shall not be treated. Basically, back then, you couldn't show that. Basically, is what that's getting at. It could basically be anybody, but that exactly what it was is how it was back then. All right. Well, number 6, we'll just say interracial relationships. So let's go with that because I can't pronounce that word to save my life. Why? Yes, it is. We're talking about the Hays Code, which from back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s is what we're discussing. I just kind of heard somebody else talk about it today, which is why I was wanting to bring it up for my first show. I actually found it quite intriguing because I never knew any of this. I actually found it very interesting just to kind of see, get an overview, like motion pictures back then, um, like the kind of rules they had to adhere to back then. I just found it interesting. This is why I looked it up. But we kind of get the idea what's being said here. And this was a news article back then. So we kind of get the idea what they were getting at. We'll say, we'll look at dancing here for a minute. Let's see. Dances suggesting or representing sexual actions or indecent passion are forbidden. Yeah, well, we wouldn't have seen Dirty Dancing. The women wouldn't have seen Magic Mike. I think we can go on the list on that one if that were still in play today. Dances which emphasize indecent movements are to be regarded as obscene. Kind of interesting back then because you figured the 20s, they had what they call it, the roaring 20s. I think is what it was called, People would dance, and I'm sure there was probably more than one seductive dance back then. But obviously, I guess at that time, they probably seen people dancing like that, because it was a more religious society back then compared to what it is now. You still have a lot of people that are, but back then it was very strictly enforced, obviously, especially in movies. Well, it was enforced in movies because at one point, because everybody had a really negative view of Hollywood up until this point, until this was put in. And I think my understanding is a lot of it because of the stuff that was in it, this kind of stuff. Religion. No film or episode may throw ridicule on any religious faith. So I guess in that one, basically you couldn't make fun of any religious belief. So I guess if you're going to do that, if they're at least covering all the bases. Now everybody's going to view that one a little bit different, though, on if it's okay or not. I say if you're going to make fun of one, you should make fun of all of them equally. I've always been a believer in that. Hey, Incoherent, feel free to ask any questions you got, man. I'll answer them, no problem. And if I don't know it, I'll look it up in front of you guys. But yeah, these are kind of some of the things in this article that were in there, which I wanted to read. All right. No, I don't have to highlight that because that's pretty big, bold lettering. 1929 saw Catholic layman Martin Quigley and Jesuit priest Father Daniel A. Lord get involved to revise and solidify the code. Okay. So the Catholic Church is pretty heavily involved in this then. Okay. Along with seeking the approval of the studios a year later, studios were not exactly thrilled about the code. I can imagine not, because the stuff they were making prior to that, which had not like full on nudity, anything like that, but suggestive scenes. Cheers, everybody. Oh, no problem. Incoherent. Sorry, Incoherent. This is my first stream, so bear with me. I'm getting used to all this. So if I sound a little nervous, sorry. That's why I call Drinks and Opinions, so I can have a nice adult beverage and make things a little bit easier. You'll find I'm a very animated person. I figure if I'm going to be on here, I might as well have some fun. You can get a better idea of how the Catholic Church effectively helped put its values to the forefront with the motion picture production code by watching the video below. Again, can't play because we know how YouTube is. We'll just show it. So if you want to look this up, you can. You probably could find this on your own. All right. This is the one I want to switch over to real quick, if none of you mind. Weirdest rules of the Hays Code. Sorry. Trying to hold that one in. All right. We'll just kind of go through the what they kind of put on here. I won't read the whole story up there. If you guys want to look it up, it'll be on Ranker. So you kind of know what to look for. 1 foot on the floor, bedroom scenes. I'm gonna lie, I probably laughed at this one. I shouldn't have, but I really did when I first read it. I just laughed. All right. When it came to depicting men and women in the bedroom, the Hays Code offered filmmakers 2 options. They could have a couple sleeping in separate twin beds. Like I said, they were twins, not singles. My apologies. But I did see that a lot on shows back then and some movies. Like the wholesome, sexless partners the audience supposedly clamored for. Again, that's why I laughed unnecessarily hard when I was reading this part. I probably shouldn't have laughed, but I did. Just because it kind of gives me a better understanding of how it was back then. Or they could show the couple sleeping in the same bed with one caveat. The woman had to have 1 foot on the floor for the duration of the scene. Presumably, this was to reassure viewers that no racy acts were going to occur. I find that interesting how they would do that, where they would have 1 foot on the ground. I never knew that. Never knew it. Although I would even think 1 foot on the ground maybe would not necessarily stop anything from happening. But again, watch TV shows, movies back then. Yeah, you'll see the separate beds. Really common. All right. No white slavery. The Hays Code says, again, YouTube. I'm reading this from an article, not my own words. The Hays Code says white slaverists shall not be treated. Though curiously, the rule comes under the heading of sex. No mention made of the enslavement of any other race. Again, that was a big thing back then, because there's this. I find this one actually a little weird why they wouldn't do it. Because back then, you could depict all the other ones, all the other races being enslaved, but not the white. I don't understand why. I don't know if back then maybe they seen it denigrating towards white people. Maybe back then, possibly maybe it came down to, let's be honest, there was racism back then, very heavily then, different time. So I wonder if that had a lot to do with that, if maybe they thought it'd be denigrating towards, white people, for that time period. So I'm not sure how that thinking went back then, but it's just a presumption on my part, obviously. All right, let's see what Incoherent Turd said. I love the name, by the way. Fantastic. All right, a lot of foundation for the rules, if I recall, came about from the degeneracy developed during the Weimar Republic. It's Weimar or Weimar? I forgot how that's pronounced exactly, but I know it was Germany. Prior to the nosy people, if you know what I mean. I was trying to put that so I don't get in trouble, but we all know what I'm talking about. But the Weimar Republic cinema, it was to try and prevent that. Ah, okay. Huh. I never knew that. But I know during World War II, a lot of the movies really got heavily edited and everything. They were cutting stuff out, putting stuff in. And I know there was a lot of back then in movies, cinema, and stuff, because that was prior to TV. There was a lot of propaganda put into movies, especially during that time period. I think even prior to us getting involved in World War II, that was kind of going on at that point in time when it was starting to kind of pick up. All right, the next one, another rule they had: no silhouette of nudity. Although you would think back then, even if they had clothes on, but if they were skin tight clothes or tight revealing clothing, that would still somehow give the idea of what was going on. Again, another weird rule, but it was a product of its time, basically. All right, let's see. Nudity shall Nudity is still heavily regulated in movies, which it is even today, depending on what movie you see and what country it's made in. I've seen a few that cross the line on being on Pornhub. Some of them probably should be. But in the days of the Hays Code, not even a hint of bare skin could be shown. That extended to silhouettes of nude bodies, too. The code primarily noted transparent or translucent materials and silhouette are frequently more suggestive than actual exposure. Well, I guess I can see that a little bit. Why, I guess at that point in time, why they would say that. I would tend to disagree. Because they could sit there and think they're butt naked and they walk out and they're just wearing a tube top or something. Not then, but now. Undressing was a no-no as well. Scenes in which a character changed outfits could only be included when essential to the plot. Hey, what's up, douchebag Kylo? How you doing, man? Welcome to the show. Just a couple of us were hanging out. Doing my first show, having an adult beverage. Going over the Hays Code from cinema that was put in place. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, douchebag. Like I said, I'm a little nervous up here being my first time, so I'm like trying to think quick. No glamorous safe cracking. Now, this one I actually found a little funny. I guess they didn't want to give anybody any ideas how to crack safes or make it basically to, glamorize it. And probably not give anybody ideas, although back then there probably were people that knew how to do it and quite well. Per the code, criminal activities that included safe cracking were not to be glamorized under any circumstance. Under any circumstances. Why, you may ask? The Hays Code author were apparently worried about giving audience ideas. The rule appears under the section beginning. Crimes against the law shall never be presented in such a way as to throw sympathy with the crime as against the law and justice, or to inspire others with desire for imitation. So basically, they didn't want to give people ideas, and make it sound glamorous and stuff like that. But where's the fun in that? Don't get me wrong, I've seen some of the movies from back then. Some of them aren't too bad. What I want to know with all of this, how did Three Stooges make it through all this? Anybody that's watched the Three Stooges knows there are probably a couple of episodes with the Three Stooges that definitely violated the Hays Code. Probably a couple times. And it was brought up earlier, the Hays Code also said no interracial relationships. None of the Hays Codes had aged well, but it is particularly cringe-inducing to read its section on race, which I would tend to agree that is very cringy. But again, it was a product of its time. It was a different time. People had a different way of thinking. I'm not saying it's right, obviously. But I think we also have to stop. Society as a whole, the society in general, has to stop trying to push our current values off onto the past. And I think that's been a big problem, whether it be with TV or movies, entertainment, life, history, for example, where they're just trying to whitewash history and get rid of stuff. I'm not a huge fan of any of that, and I agree the interracial relations thing back then I thought was stupid, but again, product of its time. This is the way it was normal back then. It's just is what it is, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right necessarily for us to push current beliefs onto it. That, yes, I would understand with the no interracial relationships, because I think most of us would think that's just stupid. But just in general, I think we're too judgy of it to a point where you can't look back at history anymore and just study it without somebody in your ear like that, bad, 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 bad kind of thing. Instead of just studying it for what it was and learning from history, which is what we should be doing, learning from history. not whitewashing it, not getting rid of it, not hiding it, learning from it. Again, even the same with rules in cinema at this time. Things we should learn from it. Obviously, interracial relationship very common in entertainment today and the world in general, which is a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. All right, let's see what Incoherent said. So true. Reimagining the past to reflect today is destructive. And I agree, it is very destructive. And I don't see why people want to do that. Especially with in this case, entertainment industry. They've ruined it. It's not fun anymore. I think it's stopped, for me, my opinion, how I view it, entertainment just stopped being funny, probably what, mid to late 2000s, and just got progressively worse about early 2010. I'd say between 2010 and probably 2014 is when it really started. That snowball started going down that hill and taking everybody with it, so to speak. So, and I do agree with that. Yeah, it's stupid. It's just, instead of learning from history, people just want to get rid of it. And it's just, if we get rid of it and hide it, hide history just in general, we're going to repeat it. It's going to happen. Sadly, but again, different discussion for a different time. I'll get off track because I have ADD. I'll be all over the place. I'll be sitting here 1 minute talking to you guys like squirrel. Indecent dances are forbidden. Yeah, I'm not surprised back then with the Hays Code that was included. I'm really not surprised because the Roaring Twenties had their version of suggestive dancing back then. For the Roaring 20s. So I'm sure that probably had, because I remember reading an article years ago how back then with the Roaring 20s at the clubs and everything that a lot of the churches didn't like the dancing that was going on. Obviously, the drinking because of prohibition, and just the way they looked at things back then, which are a lot different now. Yes, on drinks and opinions, I'm going to smoke. I'll have a cigar. Don't worry, y'all can say what you want here within YouTube rules because I have no control over that. Otherwise, I don't care. I won't delete your comment. No lustful kissing. Well, douchebag Kylo, there goes our relationship. We can't lustful kiss thanks to the Hays Code. There are reasons why vintage movies feature seemingly dry, closed-mouth kisses. I've honestly wondered that just because I've watched some old movies. I've always wondered, I'm like, man, they just kiss like they're kissing their sister or their grandma. It's just how I looked at it and what I always thought. It's like two people that are married that hate each other, but they're kissing in front of everybody else to put on a good show. But you can tell it's real awkward. The Hays Code prohibited excessive and lustful kissing, apparently, so that the screens wouldn't could. Yeah, I don't know who wrote this. This is exactly what it says. Wouldn't could stimulate the lower and baser element. Oddly, it doesn't define what qualifies as excessive or lustful. Back then, probably anything with any kind of emotion when it came to physical contact like that. Don't worry, we're almost done with this segment, and then we're gonna hop on to talking about a TV show I like from the 80s. And then if we have enough time, we might get into the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle. Something I've been reading a little bit on. So if y'all want to see me talk about the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle and like UFO sightings from aircraft around that area and disappearances, let me know down in chat and I'll talk about it if we have time. If you guys want me to talk about it, I'll make the time for you. No funny religious figures. So basically, Sister Act would not have been allowed back then. They probably all would have been in jail. The Hays Code was overtly religious, it shows, in its construction. So perhaps it's not surprising that it banned all negative depictions of faith from the silver screen. priests, ministers, nuns, and clergymen had to be portrayed as honorable so as to prevent the lowering of the audience's respect for their religion. I'm sure it had something to do with that and probably to keep people in church, let's be honest. Probably didn't want nobody sitting in church, sitting there listening to a sermon or a speech by a priest, a pastor, or whatever, and a movie that made fun of somebody like that pops in their head and they start giggling in the middle of church. Might not have went over too well. Okay. Let's see. What did Incoherent say? Well, Incoherent, and by God, we will go into the Alaska-Bermuda Triangle. There's a lot to go into it, so it'll just be kind of brief. It'll just kind of give an overview, but hopefully at some point I would like to get further into it because you don't hear a lot talked about it. It's always the Bermuda Triangle or other spots around the world. Yeah, right. Anyways, no first night scenes. Given the Hays Code's obsession with morals, you would think that might give some leeway to portrayals of passion between appropriately married couples, but even that was considered too racy. The code forbid first night scenes in general. The treatment of the bedroom must be governed by good taste and delicacy. I'll say decency because I have no idea. Let's go with decency on that one. But we all get the point of that. And approved films. Again, yeah, although they did have suggestion magazines back then from what I've seen. But I think a lot of it was like under the table stuff and it was quietly done. Because in some places that was a big no-no back then. No branding animals. I think we can all agree with this one because nobody likes animal cruelty, especially in movies. It is safe bet that the audiences don't want to see more realistic depictions of animal cruelty on the screen. However, the Hays Code's oddly specific ban of branding also applied to human beings. It was a repellent subject. Again, I'm reading this exactly how it's written, and some of this doesn't make sense to me. But I couldn't do any better. Another rule they had was no selling women. Selling any human is bad. Again, we all agree. But the Hays Code only explicitly forbids the selling of women. Women are also forbidden from selling their virtue on screen. There was to be no hooking on the corner of censorship and suppression. So basically, you couldn't be a prostitute. You couldn't bend to be a prostitute. You couldn't be a lady of the night working in a saloon back then on TV or on the movies at that point. You know, so I think that's exactly what that's getting at. You know, you couldn't do things like that. Respectful use of the flag. The Hays Code even has a section on national feelings, stipulating that the use of the flag shall be consistently respectful. It doesn't mention whether the country's flag should be given whether other countries' flags should be given similar consideration, though it does specify that the history, institutions, prominent people, and citizenry of other nations shall be represented fairly. Well, I don't particularly see an issue with that. Don't get me wrong. I think if I'm, somebody, loves our flag, loves my country, but I also think people have a right to freely express themselves, and even if it's in ways I don't like. But if you're going to represent one fairly, I'm okay with them all being represented fairly. I say if you're going to do something, do it fairly across the board. Don't be hypocritical and this is okay, but that's not okay kind of thing. So if you're going to do it evenly across the board. Yeah, I laughed at this one too because I'm a 5-year-old. No venereal diseases. You can see why venereal diseases might be an off-color subject in the eyes of the Hays Code writers. But even on-screen sexual hygiene was off the table, even though it might actually prevent the aforementioned venereal disease. Sorry, I laughed unnecessarily at that one too. But like I said, this is the Hays Code. It's something I basically wanted to share because I just heard somebody talking about it today and kind of read up on it a little bit. I just thought it was interesting. A little piece of movie history that I knew nothing about. Nothing. I'm sure you probably have people in the industry who probably don't even know about this, that this ever existed. I just found it really entertaining on very interesting subject anyway. That's how I kind of looked at it. Sorry, I'm flipping through here. Let's see. All right. We are going to now switch over. Hey, anybody got any questions? Anything like that? If you do, just go on and do it now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there's anything you'd like me to look up, I have no problem doing that. If not, I will jump into my next subject, but I will be watching chat. This is a show I grew up with in the 80s. I was born in 79. Not that damn old. I know what some of you are thinking. No, show I grew up with in the 80s. And it's one of them shows that it only had 2 seasons. And it's kind of lost to TV history, in my opinion. It really was. I've talked to some people that have heard of it, but a lot of people that haven't. Even people that I knew that people I've talked to grew up in the area, never heard of it. They either never heard of it or they forgot about it. It was just one of them shows that, even as a kid, it stuck in my head. The show was called Sledgehammer. You can look it up if you want right there on Wikipedia or find it from a different source. I'll kind of give you an idea. It's a show well worth watching if you can find it. It's funny as hell. But it was a show that it was a cop. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to put this nicely. He was a bad cop. He really was. But not bad in like corrupt sort of way. Bad in the way he doled out justice sometimes. Sometimes a bit excessive. But the show started in 1968 was the actual first episode. First season they had 22. Second season they had 19. Like I said, it only went 2 seasons. It was a really good show because hold on, let me look this up real quick. This I know I can play. All right, if y'all can see these, let me turn it down a little bit. These have been on here forever, so I shouldn't be under any copyright thing. I don't think. But we'll find out. I'll just give you like a little quick brief of the show, a little scene from it. This is a scene where him and his captain were at a gun range. And his captain looks at him, and you'll see. I don't want to ruin it for you. I know I did too, douchebag Kyle. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because I never hear anybody talk about it ever. A lot of people don't even know about it. I actually found it online, and I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy the 2 seasons because it's probably one of my favorite shows.
You're going to have a difficult time qualifying as fastest gun this year.
Just remember who you're talking to, Captain. I was born with a gun in my hand. Chief reason why I could never get babysitters.
Yeah. Ooh. Did I say 1968? I'm dyslexic. Yeah, that's it. I'm dyslexic. No, I just read it wrong. Thank you for correcting me.
That is my own invention. I call it
A Loudner. Trust me, there's so much to this TV show if you watch it. If anybody can find it, if you can find it like online or buy it, you'll have a lot of good laughs. But no, it was one of those shows that was really underrated. It was a very underrated TV show. It had a lot of comedy in it. It had the way he would deal with suspects was just hilarious. Then he had his partner Dero. She was a good cop, the by the book police officer. Totally counter to Sludge. I mean, totally counter. They were two opposites, two sides of the same coin, basically. And I know they had one scene or one episode where they had this guy that ran a street gang. Had him in the police department, and they're all trying to break into the thing because none of the cops were there. There's only a few of them, a handful of them. And this gang kept trying to break in, and they finally got in. And if I remember correctly, they were going through the ducting to rescue the guy. And when they get up on the roof, they're all up on the roof. Here comes Sledgehammer. He disappeared for like 10 minutes. Pops up on the roof. He has every firearm from the police department armory wrapped around him: shotguns, rifles, long guns, pistols, belt ammo, whole 9 yards. Just hops off, and you have to see it. It's such a good show. It was funny the way they did it. And he drove around with this car that had bullet holes in it, broken windows, if I remember correctly. It was just a great show. And it was done in such a way that was just fun. It was just it's the only way I can put it. But yeah, the show itself was based in Los Angeles. He was a inspector. I guess that'd be their version of detective. They called him Inspector Hammer. Everybody else was detective. So I don't know if they just gave it to him to make fun of that or what. But it was definitely hold on, let's see, what did douchebag say? I love how they had to make season 2 a prequel. Well, remember at the end of season 1, they had where he was in that gym, and they found that nuke, and what was it? They hit a nuke there inside the hot tub. And then they started season 2 like nothing happened. Like absolutely nothing had happened. Oop, give me 1 second, everybody. Don't worry, I'm not leaving. I'm just doing something here for a second. Give me 1 second. I'm not leaving. I'm still here. It's getting a little warm. You got to take off this button up. I look like an idiot. And I'm hot. Ooh. All right, here we go. I'm back. Sorry. I'll get a little warm there. No, they acknowledged it at the beginning of season 2. They did. I just don't remember because it's been a while since I've seen it. I forgot if they brought it up or if they had just kind of jumped as if it didn't happen, like other TV shows have done. But I've seen other TV shows where they'll sit there and something will happen like at the end of one season, and then they just jump to the next season, and it's like it never happened. But yeah, I remember they also had an episode, the Amish. Remember when he was hiding with, what was he doing? Was he hiding with the Amish people, if I remember correctly? Mennonites is what they were. I'm sorry, many notes is how they put it. They were many notes. That's what they called them in the show. It was a many note community. Yeah, because I know they got season 1 and 2, I think, on Amazon. And if I remember, it was only like 12 or 13 bucks, something like that. So I'm probably going to buy it, but I'm going to get the hard copy for it. So I used to be able to find it online, but nobody puts it up anymore. Can't help but to admire your form. Remember the first episode of that douchebag? The very first one where I guess who was it? The daughter of the mayor got abducted. And that was the first time we seen DeRoe. And how she's comes in, talk to him, brings like that big thing where she's setting up, kind of showing what was going on with the case and everything. And they had she bent over to pick something up, and they're all like, all of them, the mayor, the captain, and Sledge are all just like looking. As soon as she turns around, they're all like nothing had happened. I just died laughing at that scene. They also had a good one where he was being shot at. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. I'm just trying to show this to you people. And if you watch this, why you really need, if you can find the TV show, why you need to watch it. You want, here it is. You're going to like this one, Dish. This is how you handle a sniper on top of a building.
What's going on? I gotta get the
Got a sniper on that roof.
no good yogurty treat. Building evacuated? Yeah. We got vermin on the roof. But I got an idea.
Who are you talking to?
Nobody.
That's a fantastic bumper sticker.
What are you doing? You'll get killed.
That's exactly how you do handle that situation.
I think I got him.
I think I got him. Oh, God. Now you know I wanted to show you all this show. You know, for people that'll hopefully see the stream later. It is definitely, I don't want to give a lot of it away, but if you watch it, you're going to have a lot of good laughs in it. Like I say, he's not a corrupt cop. And he's not. He's just doesn't care about your rights. He just simply didn't. And he did what he needed to do to get to the bottom of any case. Good or bad. And DeRoe was always like that voice in his ear, trying to keep him on the right path. And the captain, Sledge drove the captain just completely insane. I mean, literally insane. And some of the accidents that happened with the captain because of Sledge are just priceless TV humor and priceless moments. But I would recommend, if none of you have seen it, try to find it. I think it's, like I say, it's in between 12 and 14 bucks for the 2 seasons. If you can find a hard copy, get it, watch it. You'll have some good laughs. I would definitely recommend it. Because they have a ton of good, funny scenes in there. It's just the way they delivered. The comedy's delivered well. There were some serious moments delivered very well. They were. It had its serious moments that did really good job. But it was just funny. And I wish it would have had more than 2 seasons. I think they could have done that. If they'd have carried it out, they could have probably done 3 or 4 seasons. But for whatever reason, the show did well, ratings-wise. It actually did very well. And, ooh, little piece of history here. Let me find this about the show. It actually has something to do with it. This show actually wasn't greenlit. Well, at the time they came up with the concept of it, there was a show. It was with Lucille Ball, based in the 80s, and it was going to be a new show. But apparently, I guess they did some test screenings for a few episodes they had made with this TV show with Lucille Ball, and apparently it didn't do good at all. Apparently, it did really bad. And they ended up just axing the whole show. And that's when this show, Sledgehammer, got greenlit, was because of that show being canceled. And I think they put it on the fall lineup, if I remember correctly, and it did really, really well. You know, it had a high, the audiences loved it. They just canceled it for whatever reason. And it's one show they shouldn't have canceled. They could have given it 3 or 4 seasons. And honestly, if they'd have done 3 or 4 seasons, probably would have been enough for it, and it just would have been great. But yeah, it's a hard show to find, but I'm going to eventually get it. And if you can, I'd recommend you all get it and watch it because you'll absolutely enjoy every moment of it. Well, hey, Stephen Ransom, how you doing? Good to see you. Welcome. We've just been having a little discussion on the Hays Code from Hollywood in the early days of Hollywood. Talking about Sledgehammer TV show, little known show that a lot of people don't know about that I'm trying to get people on board with because I think they'll all enjoy it. How you doing, Stephen? Yeah, Incoherent. Look it up. Look on YouTube. You can find clips from it. Because I know I used to be able to find it on my Fire Stick until that went all to hell. But yeah, I know they have it on Amazon, and I don't use Amazon if I don't have to, but I think on this one, because I can't find it locally, I've looked. So I'm probably going to buy it. I'm going to get the hard copy instead of having the digital. I'd rather have it physical of it. But yeah, if you get a chance, find it, watch it. You'll have a blast watching it. 1 second. Sorry, thought I muted the mic. I apologize. Had to clear my nose. Oh yeah, touching it mutes my ass. Well, we all got a sinus clearing experience together. Oh yeah, Sledgehammer. I remember that one. It was on around the same time as yeah, I remember Remington Steele. God, I haven't seen that it's been decades since I've seen it, but I remember it. Simon and Simon, yeah. The 80s, 70s had some good TV. Even though I was born in 79, I still, early 80s, even mid 80s, there were still a lot of 70s TV shows on. I've watched a ton of them. It was just good times for TV. It was fun. You don't have all the stuff you have to deal with now. You had good, wholesome TV back then, and you did. You figure 70s, 80s, 90s, especially 90s, you had Home Improvement, which was one of my top favorite TV shows of all time. You had good comedy in there. It was clean comedy, which, I like dirty, suggestive comedy, but I like clean comedy. Home Improvement did clean comedy, and they delivered it well. It made it entertaining. It was good. I enjoyed that. But we just had some fantastic TV and movies in those time frames. Oh my God. Yeah, Moonlighting. Babyface Bruce Willis. God, I might have seen it. I just don't remember. I know the show, I remember the name Moonlighting. I just don't remember if I've ever seen it or not. I honestly don't remember, but I may have and just don't. Because I'll sit there and go on like YouTube and stuff like that and look up like old shows that I had just forgotten, the kind of, I haven't seen in so long, they kind of pop out of your head and make room for everything else. And then when I find them, I'm so happy. Like yesterday, I found on, I hate to say it, Disney Plus. I watch it, but I don't have to pay for it. We'll just leave it at that. I know somebody. But it was a show from the 80s. I think it was late 80s, early 90s. Dinosaurs. I don't know if any of you remember that. The TV show Dinosaurs. Remember they had people in full body costume dinosaur outfits? Animatronic heads that were controlled by puppeteers. They had the baby. I don't even know if any of you even remember that. Yeah, but anyways, I found it on Disney Plus just by accident, actually. I was so happy when I found that. I've been watching it all day. It brought back joy to my life. And trust me, watch Dinosaurs if you get a chance. If you look at it, that show is, if you really pay attention to the way the show was, it was funny. It's funny. It had its little serious moment, but it was funny all in all. Good family show. But this show was ahead of its time. Dinosaurs is very ahead of its time. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find some here real quick. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry, I had a bunch of windows pulled up. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about exactly. Give me a second. There we go. Ah, there it is. That'll work. Oop, oop, back. There. Well, okay, but look it up. You guys can find it. Put Dinosaurs TV show. It'll pull it up. Yes, it was a rebuttal to the success of Alf. Dude, Alf was one of my favorite shows too. I loved Alf. But yeah, if you look Dinosaurs, how at the time, how ahead of its time it really was. Because I was actually watching an episode today where the dinosaurs were going to battle the four-legged dinosaurs because the pistachio nuts stopped flowing. And they didn't call it war. They just they were going to battle. They were going to spit at each other. And they didn't call it war. They called it "We Are Right," which was abbreviation for war, but they didn't know what war was back then. But it was actually ahead of time because they were talking about how the dad or son went away to do the spitting and throwing mud clots at each other, mud bundles or the mud balls at each other, and they were talking about how you can trust the government. You know, the government wouldn't lie to us, kind of thing. And they did this like on more than one occasion, whether it be like with TV, movies, life in general. They were ahead of their time on stuff they were calling out even then. But it was the way they did it was so good. Such a good, and it was funny. But they, like back then in that show, they actually had a character. His name was Harris. Douchebag might remember this. So may Stefan. Remember he worked with the dad. And his name was Harris, and he would started making sexually explicit jokes. And I guess it was supposed to be the first time in his world history, and they called it all the sexual jokes the guy started coming up with. He's like, yeah, they're jokes, but they have two meanings. And he apparently came up with this in the show, and they gave him the nickname Sexual Harris. And then there was like a big We Say So Corporation had to do a big sham investigation to the whole supercontinent of Pangea. And they're like, we're trying to get down to what sexual harassment. Think about that. Put it together. You know what it meant. But it was a show ahead of its time on a lot of things it did like that. Or the one guy was a newscaster that would always be on the news. You'd see him talking about it. They made fun of the media even back then. Howard Hand Up Me was his name. I love that name so much. They called him Howard Hand Up Me because all you saw was like from the chest up because he was always behind the anchor desk. Then they had the one character in the show, but he just did what was it? I know he's a salesman on there. I forgot what he was selling. But his name was Mel Luster. Mel, M-E-L. Last name was Luster, L-U-S-T-E-R. Think about that long and hard. There were names in that show you cannot use today. No. They would get those shows canceled quick. But yeah, I think that dude was like a salesman or something like that. They had like all the, even back then on that show, they had all like the cheesy infomercials and, you know, basically taking jabs at the government. They took jabs at corporations. They took jabs at everything in that show, but they were ahead of their time on how they did it, how they delivered it. It was really well done and funny. That's how you do it. You can talk about all that stuff, you know, nothing wrong with that, but it's how you do it and how you deliver it. That show did it and they delivered it well. Same with Home Improvement. They talked like even, you know, 80s, 90s. They talked about current events, but they did it in a way that was good and entertaining. There was a reason they did it. There was a plot behind it. And it made sense at the end. It was well done. You don't find that today. You just don't. It's just throw it in your face and beat you with it over the head, over and over and over until you just give up and go, fine, I'll just watch it. Just stop and leave me alone. And they're trying to beat everybody in submission with that stuff. Like back then, you could talk about all that stuff, but it wasn't beating you over the head with it. They just honestly, it would be an episode and there was a plot behind it and a reason behind why they were talking about it. And they did it in the right way. It was entertaining. Unlike today, like I said, you just don't get that today in a lot of TV shows or movies. You just don't. And it really bothers me that it's that way now. You can't enjoy entertainment anymore, especially half the bulk of the stuff out now. It's just, I'll be nice and say bad. That's putting it mildly. I mean, very mildly. Hold on, let's see what douchebag Kyle. Oop, hold on. Stephen Ransom first. It was a Jim. Yeah, it was Jim Henson production. Yes, Dinosaurs was Jim Henson production. Oh, sorry, that was my phone going off. My fire department's got a call. Thought I had that muted. I was sorely mistaken. Don't mind me. I'm still talking. But yeah, if you don't know anybody that hasn't seen Dinosaur, but they like good, cheap, cheesy laughs like that, show it to them. They'll enjoy it. And Sledgehammer. They'll definitely enjoy that. Oh. Yay. Sorry. We got an alert from our dispatch. They're working on emergency operations because we got weather coming in tonight. So they're in emergency operations for the evening in case the weather gets bad. And they get a lot of calls. But anyways, back to talking to all of you. I apologize. Let's see. But yeah, it was a Jim Henson production. But yeah, they were ahead of their time. They were killing shows back then, TV and movies. They were killing it back then. They knew how to address subjects, societal subjects, religious, political, in a way that wasn't browbeating you to death, but in a way that would make you think. At least you didn't have to believe it, but it would make you think, or at least go, yeah, I don't agree with that, but they delivered it. It was funny. That's all we want. We want stuff to be funny. If you're going to make fun of one thing, make fun of all of it. Like a particular subject. I think everybody should be made fun of equally. Everybody. I'm okay with that. They just don't do that anymore. Because everybody's emotions and feelings. You might hurt somebody's emotions and they need to grow up and learn to deal with it like an adult. With beer. I mean, yay. No, but yeah, they absolutely were killing it back then. It was just a good time for TV, movies, music, big hair, bright clothes. Well, the 90s is when you got the really bright clothes because then you start getting into the neon greens, yellows, oranges, blues, so on and so forth. All right, let's see what douchebag Kyla said. I was mistaken. Put that on the calendar. My buddy's mom wrote an episode of Bone Chillers. What was that for, Bone Chillers? DB. Was that an episode or something on the Dinosaurs? Because I'm rewatching again because I haven't watched it in a long time. So I'm catching back up with all the stuff I forgot about. Today is not about fostering discussion. It's about forcing you to subscribe. That's exactly what it is. You're absolutely correct. That's what it's about. That's why these shows don't do well. They're doing bad. They're doing horribly bad. Everybody's done with it. I'm to the point now I don't really watch modern TV anymore, or even movies. I think the last couple movies that are relatively new that I watched, I actually enjoyed was Ghostbusters Afterlife, because that was a good movie and it had a fantastic ending. Ghostbusters Afterlife had an ending that could have went horribly bad and could have just been a complete train wreck, but was delivered with the delivery for it was beautiful. That's the only way I can describe it. It was beautiful. It was warm. It was respecting Harold Ramis. It was beautifully well done and executed. And it's making me look forward to the next Ghostbuster movie. And I will not discuss that 2016 monstrosity that shall not be named. Never. You could give me $1 million. I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't discuss it. It never happened. Ghostbusters Afterlife confirmed it never happened when they were reading the dates on the inside of the temple. Yay, good move. But I seen another movie I've watched recently. It was Top Gun Maverick, which I went into that, and I'm biased because I watched the original, seen it in the theaters when I was a kid. Again, different time in the 80s. You could take your kids to see all these movies, and nobody had a second thought about it back then. But I thought it was better than the first one. Way better than the first one. And I liked the first one. I thought Top Gun Maverick was an all-around better movie than the first one. I'm glad they cut back on the love scene on it. Because I think, like the love scene in the first one, I think, and I know women disagree with me on this. Young Tom Cruise, I get it. But I think when they kind of backed off on the Top Gun Maverick, or still had a love scene, you know, the interest was there, but it wasn't overly done. It was just part of the plot. But it wasn't a big part of it, but it was still there, which I was fine with. I was actually impressed. I just love the movie and the fact they used real aircraft doing it, you know, when they could. Because there were certain stunts in that I guarantee you the U.S. Navy would have went, you want to do what? Hell no. But it was just a fantastic movie. You know, there was no politics in it. There was no pushing one agenda or another. It was just good quality entertainment. That's why it did so well. What was it? 1.4, $1.5 billion domestic and worldwide combined? Yeah. That's what people want to see. We want good quality entertainment. I don't care if you talk about social issues. It's how you do it. It's how you address it. Look at the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They knew how to do it, and they knew how to do it right. Like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, for example. Late 80s, early 90s when that came out. You know, they were talking about stuff in that show, but they delivered it in a powerful way. Again, it wasn't browbeating you, but it was done well. It was entertaining. But they would still discuss stuff, but they did it in the right way. These writers, directors today, if they had any ounce of talent and any ounce of integrity and any ounce of fucking backbone, and I'm sorry I cussed, I had to say it for a second, they would go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, look at these TV shows, look at these movies, watch them all, watch them twice, every episode, twice, and see why they were so successful, why people go back to watching that stuff again. Ta-da! You'll figure it out quickly if you're not a moron. And I think some of them are morons. It's how you do it. Stop browbeating us. Velma browbeats everybody. Velma is so bad, it's too woke for the woke. That tells you how bad it is now. Even woke people are looking at that going, this show's so bad, I think I'm going to re-dye my hair its natural color kind of attitude. Sorry, I got to calm down because I've been wanting to say that for a really, really long time. I mean, a really long time. And I finally got to do it, and I feel so much better. All right, let's see what you're all talking about here for a second. Mid-90s. It sounds familiar, DB. It really does. It sounds familiar. I may have seen it and just don't remember. Like I say, I'm going back trying to find all the stuff from the 80s, 90s, even some of the 70s stuff that I remember watching and trying to find it all. Hopefully, if I can get it on physical copy, I will. I'm just watching it because when I watch that, I feel good. I watch this stuff, I feel good. I have fun watching it. I don't watch anything new today, hardly. Although I did enjoy Tulsa King. I thought that was good. The ending of it had me excited for season 2 and screaming at the TV all at the same time like a psychopath. I really wish they would just go back. Well, one, get some talented writers that aren't lazy. They're all lazy. They just want to reboot everything instead of actually putting in legitimate work. I got a theory on this. Again, I'm an amateur. I'm not the expert on this. Like I'll say, if I had Raincore Steve here, or Gary Ambrosia, or DC, Mr. Nielsen, Andy Masson, so on and so forth, you know. People, they can remember this stuff off the top of their heads and never forget it. I'm jealous of that. I wish I had that my brain worked that way. It doesn't. I have to go back and rewatch stuff just to remember, because I haven't seen a lot of that stuff in a long time. And I'm going back to watching it. It's more entertaining, it's more fun, it's more upbeat, and it doesn't make me want to feel like a piece of crap after watching it. I'm just honest about that. No, you're good, douchebag. You do what you gotta do, brother. I understand. All right, let's see what Incoherent said. I saw Shin Ultraman recently. It was so much cheesy fun. Was that from the 70s or 80s, or is it something new? Because I remember, I think it was, swear, 70s or 80s, they had an Ultraman. I don't remember if it was a TV show or a movie. I just don't remember. I remember seeing it. It's just, I have the picture of what it looked like in my head. And I just don't remember when it was. But I remember it was cheesy as hell, but it was fun to watch. Sometimes cheesy shows are just fun to watch. I love some cheesy shows. I absolutely do. Because you know why? It's just stupid, fun entertainment. Sometimes I just want to watch something that's... I've seen shows like certain B, C, or rated D movies, depending on how bad they are. Like a lot of those funded movies. Like people tried to do that back in the day when it was a big thing. You know, so cheesy and they're so bad. You click on, you're like, this is so bad, but I can't stop watching it. It's a train wreck. Oh, okay. I've heard people talking about it, but I've never seen it. That's why I was asking, because I have no clue. Like I said, I just kind of heard passing on it being mentioned. Oh, and I agree. Top Gun Maverick is such a classic, good old fashioned movie. It was. It was just a fun movie. That's why it did well. Like I say, there were no politics in it, no social issues. It was just good fun with real effects in many occasions. Obviously, there's some CGI in there because there were certain stunts that the Navy was not going to let them do, like flying through a bridge. That wouldn't have happened. That definitely would have been a good way to get grounded. That's like you see a lot of these TV shows where, like with the camera angles, like some of them they do that where they're the camera where they kind of do the effect where they're running with the person. And I've seen some of that where it kind of makes you nauseous, where they overplay it too much. It's too much of it. Like some movies have done that. Some have done it well, where it was done good, but some of it was just you watch the movie and you're just like start getting that feeling of nausea from it, or you're just like, my God, this hurts my eyes. Like Battlestar Galactica from 2004, the re-envisioned of it. They did that camera stuff every once in a while where they were doing that with the cameras, where they would have the shaky cameras following them, or they would have the cameras following the Vipers or the Cylon Raiders, but they didn't overplay it. They did it really well. You could tell it was used at the right moments. Unlike the overuse of lens flares that need to stop. Stop doing lens flares in Star Trek, for the love of God. I get the point of lens flares. You're trying to give the realism in space. I know you would get lens flare in probably real life. We don't want it. Take it away. It's stupid. This isn't real. If I want to watch something with some kind of realism when it comes to space, I'll watch The Expanse. Fantastic movie. And they did really well with the effects on how it would work in space. Even Battlestar Galactica 2004, there were a lot of really good ways they did that, where all the ships had thrusters. They flip over, you'd see the thrusters fire, and then they flip, and you see them fire again to level it out. Good. I like that. Stop at the lens flares. For the love of God, it's overplayed. I swear to God, I'll put lens flares on the show. I'll do it. Yeah, right. Then nobody watch me ever again. I wouldn't blame them. They would call the show Drinks and Opinions by J.J. Abrams. That dude needs to stay the hell out of Star Trek. Badly. Although if I had my way, I'd wipe out all the recent Star Trek stuff. Just Axe it. Never happened. But that's me. Anyways, let me get back on topic. I'm sorry I started zoning here. But I finally get to say what I want to say, so I'm kind of enjoying it. It's quite refreshing. All right, let's see. Japanese are really good with the heroic cheese. Japanese movies, yeah, they are good with the heroic cheese. I've watched some older Japanese stuff and really enjoyed some of their stuff they've come up with. Like when the Japanese were doing the Godzilla movies, they were campy. Let's be honest. They were absolutely campy, and the effect and the acting was campy as hell. But it was campy, the good kind of campy, where you didn't want to turn it off. You want to see what happens next. I've watched quite a few of them. I just remember watching when I was younger and liking them. I really enjoyed them. Well, it's like, have you ever watched any of the like Japanese might have done it too, but I've seen a few zombie movies from like South Korea. They've done some good zombie movies, really well done. Some of them are really good. They've done a really good job with the zombie genre in South Korea and everything. If you haven't seen him, like Train to Busan was good. I didn't think I was going to like it, but I really enjoyed that. I think they made a second one too, if I remember correctly. But yeah, if you haven't seen Train to Busan, watch it. It's fun. You know, there's gore in it, but there's not like an over amount of it. But there's enough there. You get the point of what's going on. They have to add realism through lens flares because no, yeah, that is absolutely the truth. Yeah, it's almost like they do use the lens flares to cover up their ineptitude at directing or writing a remotely good storyline. I know nothing about any of that, and I probably couldn't do any worse. Yeah, I could actually probably. Let me correct that. Guess I'll just be honest about that one. Oh, if you look at Battlestar Galactica from 2004, how often can you say that they rebooted a show? Because that's what it was. It was a complete reboot. And but how often can you say that a rebooted show was done just as good, if not better, than the original? I think, and I like the first Battlestar Galactica from the 70s. It was cheesy and corny, but again, it was that time. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think the 2004 Battlestar Galactica reboot was better. It was and I don't like dramas normally. I'm just not a drama person. It's just not what I'm into. It's just, I get bored easily because I have ADD. But that was a space drama, and exactly what it was. Same with The Expanse. They were both space dramas, but the way they both wrote their stories, and again, modern writers could take lessons from both these shows. They were dramas, but they kept you involved. They kept you engaged, and they kept you wanting to know what was going to happen. And you actually cared about the characters and where the storyline was going. They cared about the effects. They gave you quality effects. Even for 2004, the effects on Battlestar Galactica were fantastic. You know, I like the fact they went from lasers to projectile weapons. I actually like that. I actually thought that was darn entertaining, that changeover when they did that. And it was just a good show. The Battlestar Galactica 2004 just got progressive. Even from the first episode, it was fantastic, which is a surprise. Because most shows, their first seasons are rough. Like the first season of, I'm just using examples of the original Star Trek series were rough. First season or two of TNG were rough. The first season or two of Married with Children were rough. You know, that was one of the few exceptions where, one, I think the reboot was better than the original, and it didn't have a rough start. But it helped that Battlestar Galactica 2004 did a, 2-episode miniseries. And I think that probably helped a little bit, but you could tell there was a time period between the 2-episode miniseries, which I think, 2 hours long each, something like that, right around there. And then the actual show starting itself. There had to have been, probably a year in between. Because you could tell if you look at the characters, they look totally different, just age-wise. Even Adama, you can tell there was a difference in the way he looked between the miniseries and then the actual show. But I think that's one of the few times when a show beat out the original. And you can't say that often because it doesn't normally happen. Very rarely, if ever. Oh, I remember Space 1999. I watched that. I actually was watching it 7 months ago. I was watching it. How the moon got knocked out of Earth's orbit from a nuclear explosion from all the nuclear waste on there. That was a campy movie, and it was fun to watch, and that's why I liked it. It was. The acting was campy. The effects were campy, but it was fantastic. It was fun. Good old Charlton. That wasn't Charlton Heston, was it? Hey, Stefan, that was Charlton Heston, wasn't it, that played in there, or was it no? Or no on that? Just trying to remember. Oh, the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s spoiled us with TV shows. The 80s were good for geeks. The 80s were like the geek era. It really was. It was the geek era. It was fantastic for geeks across the globe because they got their turn finally. Oh my God. I've watched Flash Gordon. It's one of my guilty pleasures to watch. That's like the king of camp almost. I don't think it's the king, but it was a runner-up at least. But once you watch Flash Gordon, you can't stop watching it. You're like, what's going to happen next? It's so bad. That's what made it so fun. UFO, I don't think I've ever seen UFO, though, that I remember. I've heard of it. I just don't recall seeing it. But yeah, Buck Rogers, I remember Buck Rogers all too well. Beady beady. Had the little robot that followed him around with the doctor around his neck. Then you had the one gal that worked at the, I'll say Earth Defense Force because I can't remember what it was called right offhand. But how she didn't trust Buck Rogers at first. Thought he was a spy for the bad people. Forgot who they were called. It's been a while since I've seen it. I remember the movie. I can picture a movie. I just can't always remember all the details. But I remember like a TV show or a movie. Just pops into my head. Yeah, Martin Landau. Martin Landau. There we go. Thank you. I think it was Martin Landau. You are correct on it. That's why I was asking, because I just wasn't sure. I couldn't picture who it was in my head that was doing it. But I think it was Martin Landau. Yeah. That dude was a hell of an actor. Yeah, I think it was Martin Landau. Yeah, but Space 1999, it was campy. Every time they went to a world or the effects, but it was fun. I did like their little laser gun they had, though, their little laser defense weapon. It was like the simple as weird as, it was a simple design, but weird at the same time, but it was functional. It was a functional design. Although that'd be nice to walk around a space station with a brick about that long to go ahead and open doors with. Beep kind of thing. You're walking around with something the size of one of those Vietnam era military telephones they would use, or radios. Oh God, I hate when autocorrect. It's all right. I was talking to somebody once and autocorrect adjusted it and wasn't what I was typing. And I was like, sorry, autocorrect. And it came up auto erect. I was like, well, that's embarrassing because it was for a job interview I was setting up. Needless to say, they never called me back. I never got a text back over that. I was like, fuck, autocorrect screwed me. And yes, that's a true story. That did happen. Yep. His wife played, she was the doctor. That was a good show. Like I said, it was campy. The acting was campy. The effects were campy, but it was fun. I'm still trying to figure out where they got all the resources to constantly keep repairing that space station on the moon. And all the people. Where'd they get all the people? They were constantly where there was damage to the space station on the moon and people were getting sucked out and or getting on a mission and would get killed. But yet they never ran out of people. Where'd they get them all? Where'd they get all the resources to fix the station? I look at little dumb things like that. Yeah, Barbara Bain. She's an older woman, but she was hot. Even today, I look at her, I'm like, it's a good looking woman. All right. Let's jump into sorry, we all got distracted here talking about some old TV shows, which I enjoy. My God, I called them old. I know I'm getting old. Excuse me. All right, let's see before I pull this up. There. Give me a second. I want to see. Because there's one story of a Alaskan airline pilot. I forgot when it was, but it was 80s or 90s, something like that. Give me a second. Just making sure I have the right one pulled up. I had them pulled up all day, but I might have forgotten. Okay, so when was this article written? This article's from 2019, but they're discussing it. So here, let me pull that up. Everybody got that? Yeah, because this is, I don't know if this is directly linked with the Alaskan, they call it the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle, but it's where the sighting was basically in the same area where they call it the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle now. At the time, it wasn't called that. All right. Unfriendly Skies, the extraordinary flight of JAL 1628, Alaska's best known UFO encounter. And if I remember on this encounter, when he did this, because he did the full report and everything, I think to the FAA for the US, his company in Japan, and whatever they have over there, however there's a setup. And if I remember correctly, there might have been a U.S. Air Force aircraft in the area. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was a tanker or what. They might have seen it too. But we're going to go ahead and read some of this out, okay? So everybody just sit back, relax, get yourself a nice hot toddy, get comfortable, put your slippers on, hug your loved ones, and Daddy will read you a story. That sounded really creepy. You're welcome. All right, this story is written by Lawrence D. Weiss. I'll give him his credit for this. Let's see, I'm going to highlight, and then we'll read it first. November 17th of this year will mark the 33rd anniversary of one of the best documented UFO cases. And it happened in the skies above Alaska. Three UFOs, they call them UAPs now. I call them UFOs. I'm not calling them UAPs because the government wants to call them UAPs. So I'm calling them UFOs. But 3 UFOs played tag with Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628 for 50 minutes while they were visually observed by a sometimes terrified flight crew. I knew it wouldn't be, especially if you don't know what it is. During the last 30 minutes, during the last 30 minutes of the UFOs were tracked on military and civilian radar. So we have 2 things going for the story here, and I've seen documentaries on it that it was tracked by military and civilian radar. So that does lend it some validity. Now what it was, I don't know. So I can say that. I don't know. That's why they call it a UFO. We don't know what it is. But we're tracked on military and civilian radar, and the entire encounter was verified by a high-level administrator of the FAA. The incident received media coverage all over the world. Here's what happened. I'm going to totally butcher this name. I mean, it's going to be bad. Real bad. But I'll try my best on this one. Japan Airlines captain Kenju Taruchi, I know I've butchered it, say Kenju Taruchi, was an ex-fighter pilot and senior airline pilot with more than 10,000 hours flight experience. He was assigned to fly a Japanese Airlines cargo flight from Paris to Reykjavik, Anchorage, and on to Tokyo. I know I butchered the one name. On November 17th at 5:09 p.m. Alaskan time, the Anchorage Air Route Traffic Control Center contacted JAL 1628, which at that time was about 104 miles northeast of Fort Yukon. The flight controller asked the pilot to adjust his heading so that the plane would pass south of Fort Yukon and Fairbanks. The co-pilot turned the plane to the left about 15 degrees. The captain, sitting on the left side of the cockpit, saw unidentified lights out his side of the window to the left and below. He thought they were military planes and ignored them. I think most pilots probably would, especially if you're near a military installation. You probably would ignore it, thinking it was fighter jets or something along those lines. After a few minutes, he realized that these were unidentified aircraft he realized that these unidentified aircrafts were pacing him. Flight 1628 contacted the Anchorage Center twice in rapid succession and asked if there were any aircraft in the area. The Anchorage Center responded that there were no military aircraft and ground radar did not show any aircraft other than Flight 1628. Then the two lights began to move in an erratic manner. Taruchi, we'll just go with that, recollected on his official report to the FAA, listed here below, and edit it for length and clarity. So basically, just cut it down to cut out all the stuff that probably had nothing to do with it, hopefully. All right. The distance from the lights was far enough from us, and we felt no immediate danger. I thought perhaps it was a UFO. The lights were still moving strangely. Most unexpectedly, two spaceships appeared, his words, appeared directly in front of the plane, shooting off lights. The inside cockpit shined brightly, and I felt the warmth of the UFO's thrusters in my face. I'm assuming that's what he probably thought was their engine, something along those lines. Then, 3 to 7 seconds later, the fire, like from the jet engines, again, this is all his words, stopped and became a small circle of lights as they began to fly in level flight at the same speed as we were. The middle of the body of the ship sparked an occasional stream of lights, like a charcoal fire. Its shape was a square, flying 500 feet to 1,000 feet in front of us, very slightly higher in altitude than us. Its size was about the same size as the body of a DC-8, similar in size to the Boeing 707. Let me see what everybody's saying here. Yeah, that's probably about right, Stephen. It's absolutely about right. I would not doubt that one bit, and I agree with you on that. Yeah. Clarity. All right. Back to this. Like I said, take all this with a grain of sand since it was edited for clarity. We know how that can be. It is impossible for any man-made machine to make a sudden appearance in front of a jumbo jet that is flying at 910 kilometers per hour and to move along in a formation paralleling our aircraft. We did not feel threatened or in danger. Honestly, we were simply astounded. I'd been curious as heck. I ain't gonna lie. I'd want to know what it was too. I have no idea why they came so close to us. There was a pale white flat light in the direction where the ships flew away, pacing us. The Anchorage Center replied that they saw nothing on their radar. I set our digital weather radar distance to 20 miles, radar angle to horizon. There it was, on the screen, a large green round object had appeared 7 or 8 miles away in the direction of the object. I'm assuming the object that they had all flown towards. The lights, anyways. We arrived at the sky above Elson Air Force Base in Fairbanks. It was a clear night. We were just above the bright city lights, and we checked the pale white lights behind us. There was a silhouette of a gigantic spaceship. We must get away quickly. Again, all his words, but like I say, they edited it down, so I'm sure you could probably find an interview with this Japanese pilot in full detail. I'm sure it's out there, or the unredacted version of it somewhere. A terrified Captain Taruchi, in coordination with Anchorage Center, attempted evasive maneuvers such as flying in a circle or changing altitude. The gigantic UFO, later described by Taruchi as the size of 2 aircraft carriers, pretty big, shadowed Flight 1628 through all their maneuvers. Taruchi wondered and feared as to their purpose. Anchorage Center offered to scramble a military jet, but Captain Taruchi declined the offer, fearing unintended consequences of a military confrontation with the UFO. About the same time, a United Airlines passenger jet flew into the same air zone and was requested by ATC to get a visual of the situation. Taruchi reported when the United plane came by our side, the spaceship disappeared suddenly. The strange encounter ended 150 miles away from Anchorage. In 1986, John Callahan was FAA Division Chief of the Accidents and Investigations Branch in Washington, D.C. About a week after the JAL 1628 incident, he got an urgent call from Alaska. Calhoun's recollections were recorded on an interview conducted circa 2000. His comments, too, are edited here for brevity and clarity. So basically, they probably cut certain. Now, they could have cut it down just to keep it short. I'll be fair about that. I'll play devil's advocate. But maybe they were told to cut some things out. I don't know. But I do think there are interviews that go into really heavy detail with it. Because I've watched it. I've actually seen this a couple of years ago. But there are interviews and stuff like that and articles that are very, very detailed on this. I'll tell you what, it's listening to the captain of that flight, that guy was absolutely convinced on what he saw. From what I seen, you could tell he was very, very convinced. But again, it's near an Air Force base, so could it have been a top secret aircraft flying around? And I'm just playing devil's advocate. Could it have been a top secret aircraft? Could it have been something they were testing? I don't know. We don't know. I wasn't there, so we're going off of his word on what others may have seen. But I remember, like I said, the story may go further into it, but there were, I think, one or two other planes that did see it. We're seeing the same thing they were, obviously, different directions, different altitudes, depending on what your flight level and speed are at. Seems like UFOs do more. They just like to fly around, see what we're doing. I think the Earth has just basically became the hillbilly part of the galaxy that people just, they don't get out of their cars, but they drive through to see what's going on, but they don't stop. They just drive through, take pictures, and are like, let's get out of here before these humans want to talk to us. And I can't say I blame them. I'd probably do the same damn thing. Let's be honest. We as a species can be stupid. Hey, maybe he was jealous, douchebag. Who knows? Side note, if you check maps from that in the mid 1600s, Alaska is a blank on the map. The same map should, yeah, because I know they're that's another thing I want to go to, and eventually on another episode is talking about the map of Antarctica that I think was made in the 1600s, and it's very detailed. But at that, science says at that time that Antarctica was still covered in 2 mile to 2 miles of ice in certain spots, but yet they have I guess they've done like ground penetrating radar or something with satellites, and it's showing that map to be almost accurate. How would they have such an accurate map that long ago with no technology? But yet, science says that the Antarctica has been covered for, a couple million years, something like that. How would they know? You could do like a flat outline, this ice goes in here. There's a little bit more water kind of thing, if you know what I'm getting at. Oh, Alaska has, it has a lot of UFO activity. It also has a high level of people disappearing. Now, sure, some of the disappearances could be inexperienced hikers, inexperienced campers. Some people maybe, they were walking, let's say, on a glacier, for example, and fell into a crevice or ice broke away. Things like that happen, where people just natural occurrence, accidents. But I think there's a lot of people that have disappeared there that have no explanation. None. I think the number is, around 16,000? I think something like that. People that have disappeared up there. Probably more now, but I think the number they were guessing was around 16,000 or so. That's a lot of people to disappear up there. Yeah, some can be explained, but I think some can't be explained. But anyways, let's get back to reading this. All right, we read that part. All right. I forgot who it was that called, but he says, we got a problem here. I don't know what to tell the media. The whole FAA office is full of the media from Alaska. Callahan asks, what's the problem? He says, it's that UFO. I said, what UFO? He says, well, last week we had a UFO chase a 747 across the skies up here for about 30 minutes or so. I told him to get all the data together. I wanted all the civilian and military discs that they had and all the tapes that they had available, and flown overnight to the tech center where I'm sitting. The military refused to send their tapes, but he got everything Anchorage Air Traffic Control had. Now, I find that a little funny. The military wouldn't send it, or at least make some copies of those radar returns, because like air traffic controls, even the military, they still record all their even back then and even now they record all their radar pickups, tracks, stuff like that. That's all recorded and put away, whether it be need for investigation, training purposes, stuff like that. But I find it weird that they couldn't do that. Now, were they hiding something that was legitimately not from this world, or were they hiding something that was top secret military aircraft? Don't know. These are questions you can ask, but we may never get an answer to it. We told him that we wanted this room set up to be just like it was in Anchorage. And we wanted all the data to come to the scoop radar monitor. That's what they call a radar monitor. And we want to see everything the controller has seen. We want to hear everything he heard. And we wanted it all tied together. The radar, the digital radar, and the sound. So I guess that'd be like radar, radar returns, audio recordings from the pilots to other aircraft, air traffic control, stuff like that. When Calhoun played the tapes, he heard a three-way conversation between Anchorage Air, ATC, Elmdorf NORAD Regional Operations Control Center, ROCC, and Captain Tarucci of JAL 1628. He also played a tape of the ATC radar sightings on a scoop. Anchorage Air Traffic Control didn't see the UFO on the radar, but based on their conversations, the military were clearly tracking the UFOs, Callahan explained. Which means our military radars, if true, were way more advanced. Were able to pick up what civilian was not able to pick up. But some militaries, I would not be surprised by that one bit. The military controller was what they call height finding radar. And they have long range radar and short range radar. So if they don't catch it on one of their systems, they catch it on the other. Ours wouldn't record it. So I'm guessing that's assuming like ATC wouldn't record it, but the military radars could. Details reported by the military controller indicated that the UFOs were traveling thousands of miles per hour as they maneuvered in the airspace around the 747. The military controller had one other surprise finding. Near the end of the incident, a United Airlines flight was diverted to observe the JAL flight. By then, Captain Tarucci no longer saw the huge UFO, and the United pilot did not see it either. Unbeknownst to both of them, the military radar clearly indicated that the UFO had tucked in out of sight behind the United flight and had begun following it. So it sounds like the way they're describing it, the UFO got close enough to the United flight that their radar returns merged, and it was just showing one large radar signature. Is what it sounds like to me. That they had got close enough where they merged, and it was just all radars picking one up. I'm assuming probably very large at that point. All right. After sitting through the presentation, Callahan's boss turned to him and said, "Don't talk to anyone until I give you the okay." The next day, his boss set up a briefing. According to Callahan, I brought up the people from the tech center. We went upstairs. We had all kinds of boxes of data, and we handed them printouts. It filled up the room. That's a lot of printouts to fill up a room. But that's how it was back then. Everything was just printouts. They brought in 3 people from the FBI, 3 people from the CIA. Surprised they were the alphabet people. Alphabet organizations were there. And 3 people from Reagan's scientific study team. I don't know who the rest of the people were, but they were all excited. All right, let's take a break on that for a minute and discuss. All right, let's see what everybody's typing in here. Well, Stefan, history's been wonky the whole time because a lot of stuff we thought we believed we're finding out now with new technology, people actually investigating, are changing slowly. Some things we're finding out were either right, close to right, or we were just painfully way off. And probably some things that they found out that they're lying about. I'll be fair to say that. So let's see. Also, YouTube is getting weird about reading articles. Just be careful. Yeah, YouTube's getting weird, period. They're going to turn around one day and wonder why nobody's making content on here anymore. YouTube's been odd about that. I think probably what, in the past 6 months, a year, they've been getting really weird about stuff. All right, let's see. Stephen Ransom says a third reason they would cover up UFOs might be that we signed an agreement with them to keep out of the public understanding. Better or worse, they won't tell us what they know. It's possible. That's very possible. And it's very, very possible. I say there's a lot we don't know. And I think a lot we're wrong about, and a lot maybe we're just misunderstood about in general. Let's see what else. The UFO seems to be checking our action. That's possible. It could have been just checking responses, because if you look at like UFO sightings, especially around military installations, they seem to be really big around that I've seen military installations, nuclear missile silos, our Navy vessels. Again, anything military just in general. And they seem to be kind of curious about like nuclear power plants and stuff. Those seem to be the big things they're really curious about. But the way our species is, they're probably like, oh God, they developed nuclear weapons. Now they're going to be in space soon. That's probably what they're thinking, and I can't say I blame them. They'd probably be thinking the same thing with our species. But yeah, they could be checking out our response. Who knows? Then again, maybe they're just a family flying here in their version of a green station wagon, and they're just like, oh, let's go check out that other thing, and they're just taking pictures. Who knows? I keep an open mind. This kind of stuff I love reading about. Anyways, back to the article. Callahan and his staff showed the assemblage of everything they had, and answered a lot of technical questions. Basically, somebody was probably given technical jargon that nobody can understand. When they got done, they actually swore all of these other people into this never took place. We never had this meeting, and this was never recorded. Not surprised one bit. Not surprised. I'm really not. This is one of the guys from the CIA. I asked them at the time, I don't know why you're saying this. I mean, if there was something there, and if it's not the then in development stealth bomber, then why? Then it's a UFO. And if it's a UFO, why wouldn't you want the people to know? One of two reasons. One, they don't know what the hell it is themselves, and they're scared of it. Well, they know what it is, they just don't know. Well, I'll say three reasons. Two, they want the technology. Definitely number two is going to be in play in this one. Or three, they have some kind of agreement set up with whoever it was. Possible too. That they can fly around, they can do certain things, but it all has to be night. Who knows? Two, I guarantee it would definitely be in play because they would want that technology. And so would every business and company, corporation. He said, if you come out and told the American public that they ran into a UFO out there, it would cause panic across the country. So, therefore, we can't talk about it. And we're taking all this data. They did, but Callahan had copies of everything in his office. And I remember in a documentary, he said he made copies of everything and never told them. When they asked me what I thought, I told them I looked like we had a UFO that was up there. As far as I was concerned, Reagan's science team were the ones that verified my own thoughts about it. They were very, very excited about the data. They had said at the time that this was the only time. And they had sorry, I'm reading this the way it is. Some of it's wonky the way it's typed. And that they used the words, a UFO, was ever recorded on radar for any length of time. And this will be the end of it. And epilogue. Within months of the incidents, Captain Terici was banished to a desk job. Yeah, I remember reading that in the thing where he was talking about that. Because he had embarrassed the company. Big thing in Japan. Do not embarrass whatever company or business you work for. That's considered dishonorable. Especially against a business. Very dishonorable. Big no-no there. there's a lot of people there in them companies that see things they don't like or agree with, and they can't say anything. It's just their culture. That's the way they were brought up. He was fully reinstated a few years later. John Callahan retired from the FAA, became an industry consultant, and periodically recounted the story of JAL Flight 1628. So, one of the stories that I've seen before that I've always found interesting, which is why I wanted to read it for everybody, because some people haven't heard of it. But like I said, there are documentaries you can find on it where they interview both of them, if I remember correctly. If you can find them, watch them. There's probably even more in-depth articles you can find, maybe some stuff I don't know if you'll be able to find, like pictures of the radar returns, anything like that. I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen any, but might be out there. It's the internet at this point. Who knows? I'll see what everybody in chat's saying. They pull down his undies. It's the government. Who knows? Everybody got a probe. Anyone ever see the film The Forgotten in 2004? It's really chilling and an interesting take on what they're after. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. But who knows what they're after? Let's say if other life forms are coming here. I personally believe they are. I believe they just developed technology we don't have, but they have the ability to come here and visit us. And they're probably going to other places. We're one of a couple things. Well, one of a couple things to them. They're either studying us, curious about our development and how we're progressing. Maybe they're coming here. Maybe our governments have an agreement with them. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of secret agreement that our governments have worked out with them on the earth for one reason or other. You can speculate on that. And maybe we're just a tourist stop. Kind of like going through a drive-through zoo. Those little drive-through wilderness parks you can drive your vehicle through. Maybe that's what we are to them. They're just coming here in their spaceships. They're bringing their little families. And we're a drive-through wilderness. Could be a lot of things. But everybody, I'm going to call that the end of the show. This is my very first official live stream. Just kind of discussing a couple things. But I'm glad y'all came out. Hope you had fun. Like I said, I was nervous the whole time, so bear with me. I'll hopefully get better at this. I am working on, like I said, I have a guest lined up at some point, but it'll probably be a regular thing where we discuss certain things. I put it in a video, but I'm glad y'all came out. Thank you. Seriously. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I got to get a lot of stuff off my chest. I got to talk about some stuff I've wanted to talk about. Again, glad y'all came here. And I would definitely go down to the description in the video. There's some people there. If you haven't followed any of them, I would recommend following them, checking them out, seeing what you think of their content. There's some of the people that have given, me somewhat of a reason to start doing this myself and everything. But again, thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed the very first episode of Drinks and Opinions. And I hope to see you all again. Steven Ransom, thanks for coming out, brother. Incoherent Turd, appreciate it. Love the name, by the way. I gotta say goodbye to douchebag Kylo. And just kidding, I love you, brother. And where'd she go? Hold on. Give me a second. I gotta scroll up here. Oh, and Lemon Pie. Hope Lemon Pie's still here. If not, if you come back and see this, Lemon Pie, bye. But thanks, guys. I had a lot of fun. I actually did have a whole bunch of fun. But again, I'm going to hop off here. Thank you for coming. Remember to like and subscribe, and I hope to see y'all in the next episode. Thank you.